Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Satarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. We had previously spoken about Krishna in his Lilas in the spiritual world, how sometimes there's a similarity. So we're going to talk a little bit, amongst other things, of how Yoga Maya works. We're going to talk about that. And now we will chant a little bit before we begin class, accompanied by my hands. I don't have any instruments. Well, I have a guitar, but... Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kupijana Balava Giribharadhari Kupijana Balaba Giribharadhari Jashodhanandana Prajajana Ranjana Jashodhanandana Prajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Banachari Jamunatira Banachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kupijana Vallabha Giribharadhari Kupijana Vallabha Giribharadhari Shodhanandana Prajajana Ranjana Jashodhanandana Prajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Banachari Jamunatira Banachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. So we're going to continue reading, and for those who are going to put what we're reading on the chat, we are beginning on page 70 something. I have to find it. I believe it's page 74. Hopefully I can find it. I marked it, but I don't see it. Maybe it's 78. Hold on, everyone. I had marked where we left off, and I am not seeing. Okay, now I have to figure out, sorry for the delay here, I have to figure out where we left off. in the last class. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. We may end up reading. We may have to end up reading what we've already read to determine where we left off. I had marked it, but maybe I didn't save it. I don't know what happened. I'm going to take a guess. Nadia, you know where we left off? Can you tell me? I was doing my homework and I marked it. I thought, okay, I will mark it so we won't have this problem. And I don't see the marking. I don't find it. So my remembrance was page 74. I'm going to go to page 74. I hope we don't miss anything. I don't want to miss anything. All right, I think I'll start reading here. This is about separation, Krishna and Dwarka, and separation, and what Krishna is feeling while he's in Dwarka. Krishna, whose heart is purchased by love, could no more forget the gopis than they could him. I think we read this. He could no more live without them than they could without him. Yeah, we read this. Therefore, although he could no longer live in Braja, somehow Krishna had to find a way to again have the company of the gopis. Separated by distance and diverse duties, how could Krishna and the gopis have been reunited? Only by the potency of Yogamaya. And so Krishna had directed her to transform the gopis into the queens of Dwarka. We read that. So this is somewhere we left off, somewhere close to this. I'm just going to continue reading till I recognize that it's a new paragraph. The spontaneous and inexplicable attachment the princesses felt for Krishna, whom they could not remember having seen and of whom they had heard very little, had impelled Krishna to find them. Even though they were scattered throughout Bharatvarsha, he claimed them as his wives, sometimes with the consent of their loved ones and sometimes by the force of his arms. Thus Krishna and the gopis were to be united once again, not as Gopa and Gopi friends, but as king and queens. And of course, the married love of the Dwarka Lila would be different from the paramour love of Braj. The love Krishna would share with the queens lacked the sweetness and intimacy of the love he had shared with the gopis. Therefore, although after long effort Krishna would be reunited with the gopis and they would be his wives, he would not be fully satisfied. He would long for their original Brajbasi forms and moods, and that longing would haunt him and drive him to return to Braja again and again. So I always find it interesting to read sentences like Krishna was not satisfied, Krishna was not happy, because by definition, he's eternally self-satisfied. But within that self-satisfaction, there is this dissatisfaction, which is based around the hankering for the highest and most intimate love, exchanges of love. And he's not happy that we're in the material world also. So he's Atmarama, he's satisfied But he's self-satisfied, but there's things that he also hankers for, like our love, and specifically to be in Braj with the gopis, as we're reading here. So it was, as it's explained here, that when the gopis expand and they become queens in Dwarka, the relationship is different. And Krishna feels that, and they also feel that in their original form as gopis, that this is not satisfying. Krishna's expansion in Dwarka was not as complete a personality as that which he displayed in Vrindavan. Similarly, the gopis' expansions, Krishna's queens in Dwarka, would not display personalities as complete as those of the gopis, the gopis displayed in Vrindavan. Their forms would look the same, and in fact, they were the same persons. Yet in Dwarka, not one of them would fully manifest her unlimited qualities. So Krishna is complete in Vrindavan, and the gopis are complete in Vrindavan. The original Krishna, Shyam Sundar, remains eternally in Vrindavan in his bhava feature, and the gopis, who can never leave him, also remain there eternally with forms and personalities that complement his. To fully participate in Krishna's pastimes, therefore, the gopis would eventually coexist in Vrindavan and in Dwarka at the same time. So this we were going back and forth. The gopis left Vrindavan, but they were in Vrindavan. Were they there? Were they not there? They couldn't be seen. It's explained. It will be explained. As queens in Dwarka, the gopis would enjoy the bliss of sambhoga. Sambhoga means union. Simultaneously and inconceivably, the gopis would remain in Vrindavan and taste the ecstasy of vipralamba, service in separation. The forms of the gopis in Braj, however, would appear to be sometimes manifested, so this explains it, and sometimes not, depending on the events Krishna would arrange through the agency of his Yogamaya. So we were reading before that the gopis had left and you wouldn't see them in Vrindavan. Then we were reading that they never leave Vrindavan. And so here, the explanation is that they appear at least visible or not visible, depending on the situation, depending on the needs of the rasa. Yogamaya Purnamasi had brought a cloudburst of ecstasy in Dwarka. Suddenly, all the Brajbasis for whom Krishna had been yearning were at his doorstep. It was Yogamaya's plan to relieve everyone of their intense feelings of separation. Radha's disappearance from Braja had been a death knell upon the three worlds, yet her absence was but a temporary plight. Tragic endings do not exist in Krishna's pastimes. That is a nice statement, isn't it? It sometimes appears like there is tragedy, like what we're reading now, but it's not possible. We did read all of this before, didn't we? Everything must end in transcendental bliss is the parameter for endings in Sanskrit drama established by Bharata Muni, the Acharya of Sanskrit drama. Joy and despair may be the warp and weft of his lila, but by the order of Yogamaya, everything must end in transcendental bliss. You remember that? Warp and weft? That's an unusual statement, at least for Americans. So we did read this. The point being made in this chapter is succinctly expressed in the last line of the summary of the 10th canto, presented in Srimad Bhagavatam, and this I guess is from a purport. This is a quote. This chapter summarizes all of Krishna's Lilas and presents the logic of Madhurena Samapayat, that everything ends well in transcendental bliss. Thus, the pain of separation is ultimately relieved by the bliss of meeting, and as you could imagine, even as it is in this world, the bliss of meeting is enhanced because of being separated. And when you're separated from someone, you tend to think of them more. And if you think of Krishna, Krishna's absolute, so then you feel Krishna's presence. So technically speaking, there is no separation. It's really just apparent. But that apparent separation increases one's thinking of Krishna, which increases one's ecstasy, but it also increases one's desire to meet Krishna. And because that desire is so strong, when they finally meet, because of the separation, the meeting is more blissful, more meaningful. And in time, they would forget that Krishna's queens were once gopis. After all, by the arrangement of Yogamaya, the gopis would still be in Braj. How could they be elsewhere? And so the Brajbasis and Krishna's crying after one another would begin anew, because that was the way of love. So Krishna, even though the queens were there, it was different. So he was sometimes found crying in separation. And we know that the Brajbasis were crying in separation, but the perfection of love is not one way. So Krishna was actually feeling more pain than the gopis. And I don't think we normally think that way or understand it that way, but that's what was actually going on. And you look at the pain of the Brajbasis, and sometimes you think, Krishna, why don't you go back? You're being so cruel to them. They're so much in pain. Once I was, I think a doctor told my daughter when we lived in Mayapur not to eat potatoes. And so she loves fries at the restaurant in Mayapur. And she wanted to order fries, and she was crying or something like that. And another Indian lady, she was watching it. She was a young woman, maybe like 30. She came up to me and she said, just get the fries for your daughter. You're causing her so much pain. Why are you causing her so much trouble? She was in pain that my daughter was in pain. Isn't that interesting? The motherly instinct. So don't ever think that separation is just felt by the devotee. Krishna actually feels it more. Because if it's love, love has to be reciprocal. It can't be that one person's feeling one thing and the other person isn't. That doesn't work. They both have to be feeling the same thing, but Krishna's even feeling it more. The moment Krishna accepted Satyabhama's hand and ushered her into his palace, she would cease being Radha. Outside her residence in Nava Vrindavan, she would be Satyabhama, the Dwarka expansion of Radha, just as Krishna, outside of Vrindavan, is an expansion of himself. And in her original form, she would return to Vrindavan, like the other Brajbasis, and continue to lament, where is Krishna? So she's with Krishna in Dwarka, with Satyabhama, Bhama, but in Braja as Radha, she's lamenting separation. We're understanding the nature of relationship with Krishna. But for now, she stood in Nava Vrindavan. Remember, Nava Vrindavan was created by Yogamaya to pacify Krishna, who was feeling separation from Vrindavan. So it existed in Dwarka. And in Nava Vrindavan, she was still Radha, but there she could marry him. And under the influence of his pastime potency, Satyabhama was elated. Lalita squeezed Vishaka's hand and said, to see the reunion of Radha and Shama is the perfection of our lives. And not our lives now, all success. It's supposed to be now, that's a misprint. We read all this. As I say, no harm reading again. And now our lives are, oh no, it's right, are not Our lives now all successful and perfect. Yeah, I read it wrong. Satyabhama had asked for a benediction that had made even her uncertain as to how it could come to pass. Although Krishna's smile radiated confidence, she was reserved and inquired further. But how will that be? In other words, how will I ask? I think that's what it means. No, how will I? She asked for a benediction, and she was wondering how the benediction will be fulfilled. And Krishna's smile indicated that he would fulfill it, but she was wondering how. In reply, by Krishna's will, Yogamaya appeared from among the flowering bushes and bore witness to the wonder of Hari's pastime. She said, "O Radha, do not doubt that at this very moment you are standing in the beautiful and opulent abode of Braj." So Yogamaya created Braj in Dwarka. And I think one of the things that's becoming evident from studying this topic of Yogamaya is Yogamaya can do anything and everything that's necessary to make Krishna happy, to make Krishna's devotees happy, to enhance their relationships. So we're seeing she's doing, creating a Vrindavan in Dwarka. That's amazing. And bewildering the Brajbasis as is necessary so that they don't realize that the gopis are married, but it seems like they're married. And so whatever's necessary she can do. She has really no limitation. They should hire her for Hollywood. Yeah, she'd be amazing, right? The original Hollywood producer. Satyabhama looked all around but continued to see the pleasure garden of Nava Vrindavan on the outskirts of Dwarka. Her blinking eyes questioned Yogamaya's assertion. "What I say is truth," continued Yogamaya, "but by the power of time, I have arranged it in a different way, O Radha, origin of all potencies. Look within your heart, and you will definitely see that you are now in Vrindavan and that Krishna is standing by your side." So it appears that Satyabhama, now in Nava Vrindavan as Radha, is questioning Radha, is this actually Vrindavan? Then Yogamaya disappeared. Satyabhama looked at Krishna. Hari squeezed her hand and with a mysterious smile said, "Devi, you know everything. What does your heart say?" That's a nice line, isn't it? What does your heart say? Satyabhama closed her eyes and beheld Vrindavan Dham. In that transcendental abode, she saw Krishna, the cows, the gopas, and the gopis. She saw herself at Krishna's side. That's hard to say. She saw herself at Krishna's side, always. Just as it had appeared that Krishna had remained in Mathura after killing Kamsa, but actually he had returned with Nanda Maharaj. Similarly, it would now appear that Krishna would remain in Dwarka, but actually he would return to Vrindavan with Satyabhama and the Brajagopis. This paragraph and the next verse are based on the Krishna book. What's being said here is that when Krishna went to Mathura, Nanda Maharaj came back without him. And here it's saying, it only appeared that Krishna had remained in Mathura, but actually he had returned with Nanda Maharaj. It's getting more confusing. So, but the principle to help us understand is what Prabhupada said, and the Shastra says, Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. So even if he leaves in a different form. That form, Shama Sundar, is always there, whether it's seen or not, or whether it's in memory, or whether it appears that he's gone. he's there. But that appearance that he's gone creates the feelings of separation, which intensify the love. The principle is, as I think it's become obvious, Yoga Maya is arranging Lilas, whether it's being present or separated. She's arranging Lilas that will only enhance love. So sometimes, we also feel some pain when we read about the pain of the separation that Krishna is experiencing or his devotees are experiencing. But then we understand now that this separation is arranged by Yoga Maya to increase the love and affection. So although it appears externally as pain, internally it's ecstasy. So the pain, the agony, is only apparent. It definitely seems that way. But internally there's the highest feelings of love. That's how to understand it. Daruka, who was accustomed to royal receptions, we read this also. Probably we read the next 3 pages. I'll just read it again. Daruka, who was accustomed to royal receptions, was astounded by the intimacy and spontaneity of the Brajbasi's welcome. And he was even more astounded by the way Krishna lovingly reciprocated with the Brajbasis. Krishna was not dispensing the mercy of the Almighty Lord with a wisp of a smile, a slight glance, or a salutatory wave. Salute. He was wholeheartedly embracing his friends, laughing and smiling with each other. So Daruka never saw this before. And placing his own garlands around their necks. He smeared the foot dust of his elders over his body, asking about their family's welfare, and humbly begged for their blessing. So in Vaikuntha, where Lord Vishnu resides, Narayan, and many of varieties of Narayan forms, this kind of relationship is not allowed. And in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Gop Kumar, who's a cowherd boy, on his way back to Braj in the spiritual world, Goloka Braj, apricot Braj, he stopped in Vaikuntha. He was going place by place to find his place. And when he went to Vaikuntha, because he was a cowherd boy, he was familiar with Lord Vishnu. And it was kind of like, the best way I could describe it is kind of like Donald Trump going to meet the Queen. Donald Trump is a very open person and not such a formal person. Hey, Queen, how's it going? Like that. And so Gop Kumar was a little bit like that. He was treating Krishna like a friend. And so the residents of Vaikuntha stopped him and said, you can't do that. That's not proper. So that's a bit what's happening now with Daruka. He's never seen this kind of relationship. He's only seen the relationship based on formal etiquette in relation with Narayana. And when the cows finally managed to push their way through the crowd, Krishna scratched their heads, placed his arm around each one, and offered them grass with his own hands. Only the gopis stayed at a distance, and Krishna, uncertain how to greet them, cast secret glances their way. So we're in Nava Vrindavan now. This is what's going on there. Everything that's in Vrindavan is in Nava Vrindavan. Gopas, gopis, cows, and friends, and everything. Subtle and intricate, indeed, are the ways of love in Braja. Purnamasi Devi led the party to the shade of a large banyan tree, where she pacified the Brajbasis and welcomed Krishna with sweet words. Her every sentence was punctuated by the Brajbasis' cry, Gopal ki jai! And it was not until after she reminded the villagers that Krishna had not eaten since leaving Indraprastha, that the reception disbanded and everyone set about their duties to prepare Krishna's meal. Hari, Purnamasi said, you have fulfilled your vow to return to Braj, and you shall surely bring life to your family. But rest first and then eat. So it appears now Krishna has returned to Braj. Everything is there and everyone's happy. But this is Nava Vrindavan. But it's the same. After you have done these things, the reception your mother has prepared will be ready. Then you may enter Gokula Pati. Krishna looked at his Yogamaya, who had the eternal form of an elderly Brahmani, the preceptor of the Brajbasis. Devi, replied Krishna, it shall be as you say. I shall certainly wait to see my parents. And since Balaram is but some days behind me, I shall wait for his arrival, and we shall enter the village together. You remember? We read this. I think we're going to be reading for another 5 minutes of what we already read. No, no, Purnamasi cried. That will not do, Krishna. You have made the gopis, and your parents wait all these years. Now you are at their doorstep. You will again make them wait? It's mere formality. Krishna raised his eyebrows as to ask, formality? Purnamasi answered, Baladev will come when he comes. We will hold a separate reception for him. But now everyone wants to greet you, and you shouldn't disappoint them. Purnamasi pointed to the Brajbasis scurrying here and there, setting out a banquet for his pleasure. Banquet. In a voice full of emotion, she said, they have suffered enough. Do not make them suffer anymore. Suddenly, Krishna's door opened with a knock. He looked up and saw Madhu. Then Purnamasi and finally Vrinda file into his room. Krishna wiped his tears and rose to greet the guru of the Brajbasis. This must be this is a different story now. So that, as I said, the stories are not contiguous because I'm just researching stories in relation to Yogamaya. So unfortunately, sometimes the stories kind of end in the middle, which is okay because at the end of class, you'll be wondering, I wonder what happened, and you'll be thinking of that lila. So it's kind of like separation. Suddenly, Krishna's door opened without a knock. He looked up and saw Madhu, then Purnamasi, and finally Vrinda file into his room. Krishna wiped his tears and rose to greet the guru of the Brajbasis, Purnamasi. He bowed before the old Brahmani and offered her a sitting place. Although he was in no condition to receive his guest, it would be wrong to be inhospitable. Purnamasi was dressed in the reddish garments of an ascetic. She was tall, fair complexion, and had hair the color of kasha flowers. Merely seeing her gave Krishna hope. Here was the goddess known and worshipped in the assembly of perfected saints as Yogamaya. She was Krishna's internal potency, who makes all arrangements for Krishna's pastimes. And she had appeared in Vrindavan as an austere old lady. By the order of her guru, Narada Muni, she had left her son, Sandipani Muni, in Avantipur, and out of love for Krishna had moved to Gokula. In the dim lamplight, Krishna could see Purnamasi smile as she said, "O child, why are you distressed? You are constantly bathed in the love of the Brajbasis. How then can you be unhappy?" That's interesting conversation. That's why he's distressed, because he's feeling the love of the Brajbasis. And it wants to be with them. For the first time since her arrival, Purnamasi displayed her own sorrow. Like a thief confessing a crime, she began to weep softly. The people of Braja are not at fault. Rather, I am to blame. You remember? We read this. Vrindadevi put her hand upon Purnamasi's back to comfort her. As the Brahmani continued, in the days of your childhood, the gopis' parents had set their hearts on you as the match for their daughters. To serve your Parakiya pastimes, I was the one who changed their minds. Then I created an illusion throughout Braja that the gopis had been married to other men. But there was no real wedding between the gopis and the gopas. In other words, she's saying, all the gopis wanted, all the mothers wanted their daughters to marry Krishna, but that would ruin the paramore lila that Krishna needed. So she didn't allow that. She changed their minds and then created this illusion that they were actually married to other men. So now they couldn't marry Krishna. Krishna asked, if the gopis were not truly married, how was it that they lived in the homes of their in-laws? Purnamasi explained, by my magical powers, I made the Brajbasis dream of the gopis' marriage and accept that dream as reality. In effect, there were no real marriages, just dreams of marriages. And so all the gopis are not truly married. That had to be done, right? Because as we were reading, the gopis never consorted with their husbands. But she created this illusion, so it seemed that they were married. And now Krishna is dancing with the wives of women who are married, which makes it more relishable for him. This was new information, but was it a solution to the problem? Whether it was a dream or not, Krishna replied, the gopis and everyone else are convinced of the gopis' marital relationships. Thus, in effect, they are the wives of others. Vrinda shook her head as Purnamasi answered, that is not correct. Now, isn't this interesting? Krishna says, Vedaham Sambatitani, I know everything. And now here in this lila, Krishna's trying to figure out what's going on, and Purnamasi's explaining it to him. So now Krishna doesn't know, and then naturally the question comes, does Krishna not know, actually not know, or is he just playing that he doesn't know? The answer is, if not knowing is helpful for the lila, then he doesn't know. And it appears here that he doesn't. By Yogamaya's potency, understanding Krishna's desire, she may arrange that he doesn't know. So this is Purnamasi speaking. Their marital relationships arose out of a dreamlike illusion, and therefore they are unreal, since the gopis' fathers never sought to give their daughters to anyone but you. They never actually gifted their daughters to anyone. The gopis are not married. It just appears like they are. So if anyone says, well, Krishna danced with other men's wives, now we can say, actually, they weren't married. It just appeared that way. Which they wouldn't understand, generally, but still, it's a fact. Krishna disagreed with Purnamasi. Devi, the gopis may have been married in a dream, but they have not passed their lives in one. The reality is that they lived, ate, and slept in the homes of men they considered their husbands. As such, their relationships have been consummated. In other words, you're living with this man. I think There's a law. If you live with someone for a period of time, then you're legally married. Or maybe those laws don't exist everywhere, but some places. Their marriages have been consummated, even though the marriage ceremonies did not actually take place. When Krishna expressed his concern that the gopis were intimate with their husbands, Madhu, Vrinda, and Purnamasi all protested in unison. No, no! At the time of the dance you held on that moonlit autumn night, explained Purnamasi, the cowherd men, bewildered by your illusory potency, thought their wives had remained home at their sides. Thus, they did not harbor any jealous feelings against you. This is from the Bhagavatam, 10:33-37. Beautiful Vrinda added, the gopis are expansions of your internal potency and are meant exclusively for your enjoyment. How can they ever belong to any other living being? Very good point, right? How could anything which is Krishna's property belong to anyone else? It's not possible. Although it was Purnamasi who arranged their apparent marriages to create the excitement of paramour love, the gopis never had any contact with their husbands. Those men never had contact with the gopis supremely attractive forms, taste, fragrance, sound, and touch, qualities which are reserved for you alone. That's from a commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He also quotes the following verse from the Ujjvala Nilamani, and the translation is, the gopis' jealous husbands consorted not with their wives, but with doubles manufactured by Maya. Thus, these men never actually had any intimate contact with the divine ladies of Braja. So as a philosophical point, and we had discussed last Friday that a materialistic person or someone who's not a devotee or lover of Krishna cannot have any relationship with Krishna's devotees. But you can say also that Purnamasi was engaging their husbands in the lila in a way that would enhance the gopis' relationship with Krishna, like trying to prevent them. It's not that the husbands were against Krishna, but that was the function of Yogamaya, because that helped the gopis become purified of any traces of any material contamination when they were stopped from going to the rasa dance. And then they gave up that contamination completely because they couldn't go. So their husbands actually aided in the pastime. So you can see the husbands are doing this service by having gopi doubles to consort with, and so that the gopis don't have to consort with them. So they're doing a service. That must be. They can't be there if they're not going to be engaged in service that way. Those same lookalikes, interjected Madhu, attend to the gopas' personal needs to this day. And your beloved gopis pine after you, awaiting your mercy. Moralists raise the question of the propriety of Krishna's consorting with other men's wives. They say that even if the gopis are not married, the mere facade that he consorts with them sets a bad example. To this allegation, Sukadeva Goswami says, he who lives as the overseeing witness within the gopis and their husbands, and indeed within all embodied living beings, assumes forms in this world to enjoy transcendental pastimes. In other words, since Krishna is the creator and the supersoul within the gopis and their husbands, what is wrong if Krishna embraces a part of his creation? Or what is wrong in his going to a secluded place with the gopis when he already resides in the most secluded place of all, their hearts? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur then says, when the Lord assumes a human-like body to show mercy to his devotees, he engages in such pastimes as will attract those who hear about them to become dedicated to him. In his commentary to this shloka, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur glorifies the Lord's conjugal pastimes, stating that these romantic affairs have an inconceivable spiritual potency to attract the polluted hearts of conditioned souls. Any pure or simple-hearted person who hears narrations of the loving affairs of Krishna will be attracted to the lotus feet of the Lord and gradually become his devotee. So, I think we had discussed this before, that there's two things going on simultaneously, and this underscores the nature of Krishna, that whenever Krishna is pleased, whenever Krishna is happy, it's beneficial for the whole universe. When Krishna is pleased, the whole universe is pleased. So, Yogamaya is arranging these pastimes to enhance the rasa between Krishna and the gopis. But when we read, when we hear, we also get to experience some of that, and we become purified by it. So nothing that Krishna does is ever selfish. It's always beneficial for everyone. Right? And what's being pointed out here is that the love between Krishna and the gopis, when you read about it, it is so high. It is so deep, and therefore it is so antithetical to every kind of so-called love in this world that it is the most purifying thing to hear. Because we're hearing about real love, and so by hearing about real love, it purifies the desire for experiencing the perverted reflection of real love, lust. So that's the power of hearing these Lilas, because you're hearing about what is real. And as we said last week, Prabhupada said this world is a perverted reflection. So if it's a perverted reflection, it's very important, it's very valuable to hear about the reality, not just to hear about the perverted reflection. We hear a lot about the perverted reflection and what's wrong with it, but to see the reality, it's also necessary. So we're getting to see the reality of this is what love is, and everybody wants love. Everyone's hankering for it. And most people don't really understand love except in material terms. And material love has its limitation, obviously, in duration and depth. But spiritual love has no limitation in duration and depth. And categorically, it's different. So there's no inebrities in that because it's transcendental. There's no mundane quality, mundane envy or jealousy or misunderstanding and so forth. If there's a misunderstanding between two lovers in this world, it creates tension. And sometimes it creates depression, or sometimes it just creates incredible disturbance. But when there's misunderstanding between Radha and Krishna, it creates more love, right? When Radha becomes angry at Krishna, he likes that. She becomes more beautiful to him when she's angry, and then he comes and he begs forgiveness. And she thinks about it. But there's no material inebriety to that love. There's no sorrow or material distress. So if we hear about those things, then we can start to understand, okay, this is real love. And the love of this world, you will begin to understand the nature of the love of this world when you understand the nature of that love and how this love falls short. And what the love of this world can be and what it can't be, what it should be, what it shouldn't be, and the limitations of it in fulfilling our heart's deepest desire. And so that's why we say if you think you can fulfill your heart's desire for love in this world, you'll be disappointed. But only in that world can it be fully fulfilled. And we would say that you may need the love and affection of another person, another partner in this world, so that you can be in the best position then to fully enter into love of Krishna. And ultimately, your love for your partner in this world will be expressed in relation to your love for Krishna, that you will do things that will help them become Krishna conscious. That's how you express the highest love. Even maybe you don't express love as it might be traditionally thought of. These are the actions of love. We should do that. But even if you don't, if you express your love by helping that person, facilitating that person's spiritual advancement, then that's the highest form of love. Just like sometimes the spiritual master will chastise a disciple, and it doesn't seem loving to be chastised. But because he's chastising in order to help that devotee come closer to Krishna, then it's a manifestation of the highest love. So love in this world where we satisfy one another's desires, if that doesn't help us become Krishna conscious, how ultimately could you call it love in the true sense? So when Prabhupada said there's no love here, when two people are satisfying one another's sensual desires and needs, which is what people do in a good relationship, but if that only entangles them more in the material world, then how is that love? Because the result of your love is that you will take another body. And if I do something, if I facilitate or help you in your relationship with Krishna, that's love. So if you define love that way, then you understand when Prabhupada said there's no love. That's what he meant. He didn't mean that there's no affection between devotees, between husband and wife and so forth. And that if there is helping of one another, that's real love. But in ordinary life, people are basically helping one another enjoy on a material platform. So it's not real love. Even if it is love, it's not, because by definition, love must be in relation to Krishna. So it's like sometimes Prabhupada would say that if you're not a devotee, you don't have any good qualities. And we would say, but so many people have good qualities. What does it mean? And he's not saying that they don't have good qualities. He's saying their good qualities don't have value because they're not being used in Krishna service. So in that sense, they don't have any good qualities. It's more accurate to say what is the value of their good qualities. It's zero. So, it's not that we say there aren't couples who love one another, but we'll say, well, what is the value of that love? Did you help one another become Krishna conscious? If not, then we can't say you didn't love one another. But in the spiritual sense of love, we could say you didn't love one another because you're both coming back. Maybe you'll be married again as human beings, or maybe some other form of life, who knows? Okay, I am now going to see if there's any questions or comments. So if you just give me a moment, I will just start at the top in case, just so I don't miss any. Even though I have a special Shakti to miss, even if I go to the top. So forgive me for that. Anuradha, did I even get to where we left off? I wrote 3 red dots, yeah. And I couldn't find the 3 red dots. Isn't that interesting? You got the document with the 3 red dots and I didn't. What page is that, Anuradha, that I put the 3 red dots? I want to go back and check. We might have just read everything we read last Friday, which is fine because the Lilas are, they're always new and fresh. Yeah, Krishna is feeling more separation. You know what Prabhupada said, Krishna's 10 times more anxious for us to go back to Godhead. So that being said, he's also feeling separation at least 10 times more. of course, we're not really feeling separation from anything but sense gratification. If you could have anything, what do you want? More sense gratification. Ask any person. If you could have anything, what would you want? How many are going to say love of God? That's what I want. Because they're not feeling separation from Krishna. So Christy says, I just thought that eventually, once you understand all the pastimes, Krishna is not mischievous at all. It's just an illusion that we consider his actions as naughty or incorrect from the materialistic point of view. Because once we do understand, the gopis are not actually being married, there is nothing mischievous at all, yeah. But it's true. But what makes the pastimes relishable is that it appears mischievous. Krishna is stealing. He is naughty. But what's he stealing? How can Krishna steal if everything belongs to him? Right? So, but what makes the pastimes relishable is that you don't see Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You see him as this young boy stealing. And you think, oh, this naughty boy, he's so naughty. So from the point of tattva, what you're saying, from a philosophical perspective, what you're saying, Christe, is true. But from the point of rasa, we actually want to see him as mischievous and a lusty boy mad after other men's wives. That enhances the rasa. So Jyotirmaya is asking, can the fact that there were copies of the gopis to live with their husbands instead of the original with Krishna be seen like the authentic part of us being always with the Lord and leave what Tibet has to do with the material life? You could see it that way. I don't think that was the intention of that lila, but you could see it that way. And a copy of us just keep on going everyday life, and since it's a copy, we keep detached. My copy goes to work, and my, Well, you know that example that Prabhupada gives. It's in the wife, she has a relationship with another man, and she's trying to keep it secret. So she acts in a way that her husband would have no idea, because she's just very dedicated to her husband. So but that other self is thinking of that man. So you go to work, you're dedicated to your work, but that's just that Jyotirmaya is just at work, but the other Jyotirmaya is in Krishna consciousness. So yeah, that could, if that works for you, yeah. If that helps you, I don't think that was the intention of it. Marco said, we often have more feeling of separation from Maya. Yeah, that's the problem. You see, the problem of material desire is that it's true. When you don't get it, it does create separation. A feeling of absence. And that feeling of absence is meant to be directed towards Krishna, or meant to be felt in Krishna consciousness. That's the sign that we're developing Krishna consciousness. But if we're not developing Krishna consciousness, then you'll feel it towards material things. Separation from various sensual activities, sports, hobbies, whatever. And like addictions, if you don't fulfill your dose of addiction, then you go crazy. So we want to be addicted to actions and activities in Krishna consciousness, so that we feel separation. Like, oh, I didn't get my rounds done this morning. I feel separation. I need to chant. Or I didn't get to read this morning, or sufficiently. I feel separation. I need that. That's fantastic. That's how we should feel. But if we don't feel that way, if we do feel that way, that's unfortunate, and it's a sign that we need to be progressing more in Krishna consciousness. And it, of course, obviously is impeding feelings of separation towards Krishna. That we can't expect to awaken fully, but at least a little bit. I mean, feelings of separation are symptomatic of very high stages of bhakti. But feeling of separation from the guru, feeling of separation from the devotees, feeling of separation from not doing one's service and so on, that's all can be felt now. And if we can feel it, it's just going to enhance our devotional service. And if we're feeling separation from other things, it just harms our bhakti. And it's a sign there's a problem. If I'm feeling more separation from Maya than from Krishna, that's a problem. So, it's the separation test. You have to do the separation test. Okay. Question or statement. And how cruel can the conditioned souls be, knowing that Krishna feels 10 times more separation? Actually, we're going to read, it's 100. From us, and we care more about sense gratification instead of coming back to him. Yeah, it's a nice meditation. It's a nice meditation when you're chanting japa to think that way. I'm chanting to awaken my affection for Krishna. And maybe I don't care. Maybe I'm not feeling it. It's like people are married for a long time. After a while, the relationship isn't going well, and they say, I'm not feeling the spark. I'm not feeling the fire. I think sometimes when we chant japa, we don't say that, but that's what's going on in our mind. Krishna, I don't feel the spark. I'd rather just do something else right now. So these are all signs that we have work to do. And these signs don't have to be there. If you're executing devotional service well, even if you're a young devotee, it's not like this is considered to be normal just because you're not an older devotee. That's only partially true, but I would say it's not entirely true, because you can have some seedlings, some glimpses of these feelings, even at a very low level of devotional service, if you do Krishna consciousness properly. Sadhyarupa says, if we are feeling zero separation, then Krishna is also feeling 10 times zero. Yeah. That's zero separation from us. I think Krishna Karshani Adshi will agree with me, yeah. Krishna's feeling 10 times zero, yeah. So at least you have to feel one bit of separation so he can multiply it. But we're going to read, it's actually 100. So let's continue reading. Okay, where did I leave off? Let me back. I don't know where I left off. A ray of hope appeared before Krishna. Purnamasi had surely spoken the truth, but then, how could such a complex illusion be explained, or even revealed to the simple Brajbasis in a way that they would believe it beyond a shadow of a doubt? As if reading his mind, saintly Yogamaya said, Hari, don't worry. I will disclose these events in a suitable way at a suitable time. How will you do that? Krishna inquired. I give you my promise. I shall reveal the trance of the dream marriage and expose the gopis' doubles. Leave it to me. Stay tuned to find out how. Krishna's heart pounded as Madhu beamed a smile of self-satisfaction. I ask but one thing of you, said Purnamasi. Do not waver further on this issue. Marry the gopis and be especially sympathetic to Radha. Oh, there's the 3 dots. Why wasn't I seeing them before? It was Yogamaya covered my eyes, so I didn't see them. It's because she wanted us to read. So where I'm starting now is where we left off last time. So we just spent about 4/5 of the class reading and discussing what we already read. I could read the same thing the next class and read it and discuss it again. It's not really a problem. Even though your teacher is absent-minded, so absent-minded that even though he marks the spot, he was attended to the detail to not waste your time by marking the spot where we left off last week. Still, he couldn't even find it. It must be Yogamaya. There's no other explanation. Okay, so we'll begin reading from where we left off last time. Before the Brajbasi's eyes, Purnamasi invoked the presence of the goddess Vishnu Maya, who appeared in the center of the square in the transcendental form with 8 arms. That form of Yogamaya was all attractive, decorated with flower garlands, smeared with sandalwood pulp, and dressed in costly garments. In her hands she held a bow, trident, arrows, shield, sword, a conch shell disc, and club. And from above she was praised and worshipped by celestial beings like Apsaras and Gandharvas. So this appears to be an expansion of Yogamaya called Vishnu Maya in a very Kshatriya-like form with all those weapons. As Yogamaya walked amongst the Brajbasis, her feet never touched the ground. So as far as I know, we're still in Braja, and we're still in New Nava Vrindavan. Her feet never touched the ground, and she appeared to be simultaneously near every person. And when the goddess spoke, each Brajbasi thought that she was speaking directly to him or her. "O Mother Father," said Yogamaya, addressing Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yasoda, in whose house she had taken birth along with Krishna. "O people of Braja, please hear me and accept my words as truth." All the Brajbasis folded their hands and offered respects as Yogamaya spoke. "The marriage of the young gopis and gopas never took place. It was an illusion created by me in your dreams, and it was by my power that you accepted that dream as realities." Must be a nice scene for a movie. It's sometimes, if you want to enter more deeply into the lila, imagine you're watching this on a huge, huge movie screen. The Brajbasi's initial reaction was skeptical as the goddess went on. "I did this so that later the gopis could actually be married to Krishna. But since the gopis appeared to be married," continued Yogamaya, "I created a double of each of them. It was these look-alikes with whom the gopas stayed. I, who am all-powerful, could not allow the gopis, whom I knew my brother Krishna would accept as his wives, to be touched by others." My brother Krishna. Yogamaya is Krishna's brother. Shubhadra. "In ancient times I created doubles of Sita Devi, Samgya, and Rati. In the same way I created look-alikes of all the young gopis in Vrindavan. Now just see." To prove her statement true, Yogamaya herded the cowering gopi look-alikes in the direction of the original gopis and had the 2 groups stand beside each other. The shocked audience observed that the 2 sets of gopis were identical in every way. Wow, what a scene. I have to do a movie. Yogamaya walked back and forth between the groups of gopis and the Vrajavasis, like a narrator introducing the actors of a drama. And then she said, whenever the situation required, I would hide or manifest one of these two groups of gopis. For instance, on the night of the Rasa dance in the Sharat season, I manifested the gopis' doubles so that the original gopis could meet and dance with Krishna. The gopas thought that although their wives desired to follow the call of Krishna's flute, they continued to remain at home. In fact, the gopis did not go to Krishna, and the gopis did go to Krishna, and their doubles stayed home. So now she's revealing everything. Yogamaya mystified the Brajbasis with her revelations. It was truly like a stage performance. Yogamaya was like a magician who reveals her sleight of hand to a disbelieving audience. Now, challenged. Now, Yogamaya said. Challenged Yogamaya with a wave of her hand. Now tell me, cowherds of Vraja, can you see a difference between these two sets of gopis? Wait. Something's wrong. Anyway. Oh. Now challenged, Yoga with a wave of her hand said, now tell me, cowherds of Vraja. In other words, they were challenging her. How is this possible? Tell me, cowherds, can you see a difference? At Yogamaya's invitation, the Brajbasis eyed both sets of gopis carefully, and others came closer to them to get a better look. The gopis, feeling uneasy being examined, pulled their veils over their faces. Nanda and Jasoda spoke to each other. When glass and jewels appear the same to an untrained eye, they are given to an expert jeweler for evaluation. And the jeweler is himself tested by his analysis. Yes, we have also been ordered to distinguish Radha and her friends from their imitations. And as we are testing them, we too are being tested. Yogamaya asked the individual gopis to be placed side by side. Radha beside, so first it was just groups on either side, and now they're going side to side. Radha beside the double of Radha, Lalita beside the double of Lalita, Chandravali beside the double of Chandravali, and so on. Even the gopis in question became momentarily bewildered as to whether they were originals or lookalikes. But when Yogamaya freed the Brajbasis of her bewildering potency, everyone could easily distinguish the real gopis from their lookalikes. The original gopis, by virtue of the matchless qualities radiating from their hearts, appeared distinct from their counterparts. The original gopis loved only Krishna. They never thought of anyone but Krishna. The gopi lookalikes, however, although created to exactly resemble the gopis, did not have the same love as the original gopis. The lookalikes accepted the gopas as their husbands and served them in that way. Thus, the qualities born of pure love for Hari, such as bodily luster, shine in the eyes, and all attractiveness, which were present in the original gopis, were absent in their lookalikes. It was the shine in the eyes was absent. Bodily luster, shine in the eyes, and all attractiveness. The Brajbasis conferred amongst themselves and triumphantly replied, O goddess, although the moon shines brightly in the sun's absence, when the sun arises in the sky, the moon loses its luster. Similarly, when placed side by side, the original gopis distinguish themselves from their doubles by the luster of their qualities. Seeing both the gopis and their doubles side by side, the Brajbasis were fully convinced of Yogamaya's testimony. In groups, they began to speak of Krishna's marriage to the gopis. Suddenly, everything had become auspicious and effulgent for the gopis. Not knowing whether to laugh or cry, but doing both, they looked out through the aperture of their veils and feasted upon Krishna's lotus face. And Krishna, who was beaming with happiness in the midst of his friends, was like a bubbling cloud of bliss resting upon the earth. Nandaraj turned to Yogamaya and said, "Now that you have put us on the path of happiness, what, O goddess, should we do? Where should the original gopis and then where should the original gopis and their doubles go?" Yogamaya stood before Radha and replied, "The original gopis should return to their parental homes, and their lookalikes should rejoin their husbands. Then, at the appropriate time, knowing that the gopis are not married, that they have always remained pure, you should perform Krishna's wedding and bring great happiness to the world." In other words, marry all those gopis. After saying this, Yogamaya cast a glance at Purnamasi, offered pranams to Krishna, and then disappeared. Amazed, the Brajbasis respectfully bowed and shouted, "Jai Jai." So I'm going to see if you have any questions. And I'm going to mark this section here with 108 eights, the whole line of eights. I should be able not to miss that one. Okay. I'm going back to see where we left off. Okay, Christy says, if you mark the whole last sentence in a bright color, yeah. That is a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? Brain dead. I'm wondering how we cannot feel separation from Krishna if we used to love him. Being in the spiritual world, to be honest, I don't feel separation from Krishna. Yeah. Well, just because that's our original consciousness, once it's lost, you don't feel it. You know, just like you love somebody, then you don't love them anymore. And so you get divorced and you don't feel any separation because you don't love them. But you can feel separation from Guru. That's the nice thing. That's one of the beauties of Krishna consciousness. Krishna sends Guru so you can love him. Krishna sends Guru so you get to experience separation, feelings of separation from Guru. It's not the same thing, but it's the best you can hope for, and it's certainly powerful, certainly purifying. And so that will be the beginning. But it's a fact. How can you feel separation from someone if you don't love them? So until we love Krishna, we can't feel separation. But what we can feel separation is separation from the love that we don't have. That's possible. I wish I had it. So I feel separation in that sense, that I wish I had what I don't have. So there is separation. I can feel separation from the fact that my spiritual practices are not good. So there is some form. You may not call that. It's the separation that Vipralambha refers to, but there is a separation of feeling, a hankering in Krishna consciousness, even in a very young stage. I'm hankering to be better. I'm hankering to do better service. I'm hankering to be more pure, like that. So that's there. Marco says, whoa. Oh, he says, wow. How incredibly amazing, inconceivable, fascinating, and superlative are the power of Yogamaya and the depth of Krishna's love. Yeah. The beauty of Krishna consciousness, which is why we all joined, is that you'll never understand it completely, and you'll never hit the bottom of the barrel. Because material life is boring, because everything is exciting until you actually do it, and then once you've done it, it's like, okay, I've done it. And so we say, been there, done that. It's like, I'm over it, and I've done it. It's not exciting anymore. Or it might be exciting a little bit, but it's a little old also, It's like you're a musician, Marco, so like you can play guitar, but, it's like, you're playing the same thing over and over again that you played yesterday and the day before, maybe a little better. But, it's like, okay, it gives you some happiness, but it's like, how long can you play and how deep is it? And it's just a relationship with a piece of wood and strings. It's not a relationship with a person. So the beauty of Krishna consciousness is it's always expanding. And what could be better than that? Right? And I think all the hankering we have for material happiness and pleasure exists because we're hankering for something which has no end, and we don't find it. Then we have to go out and do the same things over and over again, and basically experience the same thing over and over again. And it gets old. And, done it, I can play golf, every day. Great, had a good time, but it gets old. It's like it's not exciting. Although people may think these things are exciting because they don't know what actually excitement is. So they haven't experienced spiritual life, so this is all they have. But for us who have experienced and understand spiritual life, for us to find happiness in these things it's sad when you have an unlimited ocean and you're just going to bathe in a little puddle. That's sad news, I think. Does Yogamaya replace us with fake us in the spiritual world after we left their body? No, well, you're not you. The you you're thinking now is not you, so there's nothing to replace you with. Because you don't exist, because you're not. So how can you replace something that doesn't exist? Margovjata does not exist. It's a temporary character on the stage of earth that will not exist. You as spirit soul exist, and that's not being replaced. That in the spiritual world, you as soul achieve a spiritual form. And we're going to read, maybe tomorrow or the next day, we're going to read the story about how Uddhava went back to Godhead, and I think there's another story of another devotee going back to God, and it's very nice to read how it doesn't show how they're going back to Godhead, but it shows what happens when they get there, what the experience is. John Lennon of the Beatles, John Lennon of the Beatles, he was very attached to his wife, and his wife was very attached to him, and they felt like there was something special, like soulmates. And she asked Prabhupada, will we be together eternally in the spiritual world? And Prabhupada said no. I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back of her any attraction she had for Krishna. If she did have any, I think that broke it, from what I understand. She wasn't happy to hear that. We have another. If Casey is so exciting, why some devotees are not happy? Because they're dull people. You know what I say to devotees when they say japa is boring? I say, japa is not boring, you're boring. Or the way you chant japa is boring. So Krishna consciousness is exciting maybe you're not exciting. Okay, in seriousness, if it's exciting, yeah, like, let's say Krishna Karshani, someone wants to teach you how to ski, and they love skiing, and to them ski is exciting. And they take you up to the top of this mountain, and it's freezing, and you have these skis on your feet, and it's like really uncomfortable, and you have these. I've never skied, I've just seen it. And they go, well, ski down like this, it's really fun, and you're saying, this doesn't look like fun at all. I don't want to do this. This looks like I'm gonna like twist my ankle or something, So there's a lot of things in this world that are exciting, but they're not exciting to everybody because not everybody knows how to do it. And the person's saying, oh, but once you go down the mountain, if you learn how to do it, it's exciting. And you're saying, I don't think so. So then you never get to experience the excitement because you never did it right. So, if you don't execute Krishna consciousness right, how can you can't say Krishna consciousness is not exciting. All you can say is you never skied down the mountain. If you actually skied down the mountain, you'd be excited. So maybe you never did Krishna consciousness, because you can't say Krishna consciousness is not exciting. You could say it's not exciting when you try to practice Krishna consciousness wrongly and you never enter into Krishna consciousness. That's not exciting. That for sure is not exciting. We know it's not exciting. We have experience. And we know devotees leave because they get more excited about other things than the kind of Krishna consciousness that they're practicing, because the kind of Krishna consciousness they're practicing really isn't much of Krishna consciousness, so it's definitely not exciting. But we can't say Krishna consciousness is not exciting. We could say the bad practice of Krishna consciousness is not exciting, or so-called Krishna. We could say so-called Krishna consciousness is not exciting. The mispractice of it is not exciting. Just like skiing down a mountain, if you don't know what to do, you just fall over, right? And you go, this is not fun. You go, Krishna Karshani, wasn't that exciting? What? Falling over is exciting? That's not exciting. No, but if you if you ski down the mountain, it's really exciting. He said, yeah, but it's going to take me a week of practicing to ski down the mountain, and it doesn't look that fun, and I don't want to practice for a week. So you're just licking the bottle of honey. You weren't actually tasting it. So the honey is sweet. I guess the best answer to your question is the honey is sweet, but the bottle isn't. So if you think licking the bottle of Krishna consciousness is Krishna consciousness, it isn't. And so even the statement that they're practicing it is not accurate, because they're not really practicing it. Because if they were practicing it, they'd be excited. So they're just licking the bottle. And licking the bottle is licking the bottle. Does that make sense? Money says, thanks for setting the movie scene. Yeah, I do that a lot. I like to look at those Lilas like, imagining I'm producing this. Krishna asks, why would one ask a question and be unsatisfied with the answer they asked? Because it's not the answer they wanted. Marco, Krishna consciousness is more than exciting. Shishukam kartavabhyayam. I think noticing how happy we are is a good measure of how far we're actually progressing. Yeah. How many devotees experienced that Casey was exciting for them, but in due course of time stopped being exciting? Bad practice. Main reason for that? Yeah, that could be the main reason. Could be other reasons. Offending devotees, becoming very critical. Bad practice, or stopping the practice, or practice with the wrong attitude. Krishna Karshana, that some people by nature are just very critical and negative. And so if you become a devotee and then end up like criticizing everything and thinking everything's bad and every devotee's bad, how exciting is that? So that does happen. I'd say not as common as maybe just becoming lax in your practice, but that definitely happens to a lot of people. Some people are they're just negative by nature. And they get so negative either about other devotees or they get negative about themselves. I'm such a bad devotee, etc., etc. And so, that negativity just prevents you from experiencing the positive side of Krishna consciousness. So that can happen. There's as there are different people, there are different reasons, but the reasons tend to be similar. And there are some people who are wired negative. It's just how they are. They will always see negative, and that's dangerous when you're seeing all the devotees in a negative way. Well, it's dangerous to see anything in a negative way. But especially when you come in association with devotees, if you're seeing all the devotees in a negative way, then it's harmful. For your spiritual life, and you can lose the taste that way very easily. Then it's, I don't want to associate with devotees because devotees are this, devotees are that. Then if you don't associate with devotees, that's usually when your Krishna consciousness begins to really suffer, because you really can't do it alone. And you are still, even if you don't associate, but if you don't like devotees, you are still associating with them in your mind in terms of your negative thoughts. So that's a very common way to lose Krishna consciousness, become negative towards devotees. We've all seen it many times. Anyone who becomes that way generally leaves association, and generally without association they don't do well. Even if they're practicing, generally they don't do well, because good association is essential, and association with the right attitude. So you associate but you're negative, then you're not really associating, neither will you be getting the benefit. So that's one common factor, along with just being lax in the practice. And sometimes people do the practice, but their mind and heart is not into the practice. So they're not experiencing Krishna consciousness. So those are some reasons. All I can say is, love the devotees, even the ones you don't like. Because it's good for you to love devotees, even the ones you don't love. I love all the devotees, even the ones I don't love, because I know loving the devotees is good for me. If for no other reason, I will love you simply because it's good for me. Good for you also, but who cares about you? I just care about myself. So even if I'm like that, I only care about myself, I should love you because that will help me. Right? Like I tell people, you should forgive because it's good for you. And they say, yeah, but that person doesn't deserve my forgiveness. And I say, well, you deserve your forgiveness. So that's another way of looking at it. Maybe not the highest way, but it's a way. Okay, it's time to go. Hare Krishna, you've got an extra 9 minutes today. Must be your lucky day, right? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premanandi.